You're listening to the Bob and Bo Show. Here are your hosts, Ty Bob and Ty Bo. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Ty Bob. You can follow me on Twitter at Ty underscore Bob underscore. Man,
you can just feel the pressure,
every week
dude. Like you're not. You crack.
I don't even think about it. My mind's like.
I think you're overthinking it.
At Ty underscore Bob underscore. You've heard the voice of Ty Bo. You can find him and the show at Bob and Bo Show. And you also heard the voice or laugh of Mr. Sean Wilson. Make sure to follow him at Sheen1440.
Hey, there you go.
I can get everybody else's every time. But just like I can get everybody else's, so can the Kansas City Chiefs. They come away with a big win in week 2, first game at home on Amazon Prime across the nation with a win over the Los Angeles Chargers 27-24. Now,
love to hear that.
Close one.
Big game. Tybo and I both got to go. It was fantastic. The crowd was electric. But before we get too far into that, we do have some news that will threaten the next 4 weeks. Threatens maybe too harsh of a word. But Willie Gay has been suspended for the next 4 games. He'll be returning after the Bills game. We'll address that, but in honor of Willie Gay's suspension, I think Tybo has a top 5 for players suspended.
Yeah, just to lighten the mood on what we got going with Willie Gay, I'm bringing you my top 5 players that have been suspended by the NFL. And I'm not counting players that have been suspended by their teams. This is like big time stuff, players that have been suspended by the NFL. And once again, I do have many more names than just 5 names. So you're welcome. The first honorable mention is a pair of players because, they might not have been the best players that have been suspended, but they got suspended in probably the most entertaining way, funny, comedic. Michael Crabtree and Aqib Talib, the whole chain snatching saga, great television. People tuned in to watch that shit. So they make the list just because of how great the situation was in which they got suspended for.
He never gave those chains back, by the way. Like,
No.
Aqib Talib owns those chains.
Yeah, good. As he should. Another honorable mention, the biggest name that's definitely been suspended this year, D-Hop. Recent memory, very notable player. The dude is uncoverable, he's be willing to, or definitely wanting to see if he can return to form after being suspended. But he makes honorable mention because of his talent. Moving into the top 5, 5th on the list. The season that he played, I think he was better than D-Hop, so that's why he's number 5 and above him on the honorable mention. Josh Gordon, playing less than a full season and still leading the league in receiving yards with like 3 different quarterbacks that season.
Not just any different quarterbacks. Browns quarterbacks.
Bad quarterbacks.
1,600 yards receiving.
Insane. In 14 games, right?
Yes, 14 games, 1,600 yards.
Ridiculous. So that's why Josh Gordon's number 5 and D-Hop is not. Number 4, Antonio Brown. All the stuff he's done in the NFL, I don't even know exactly what he was actually suspended for. But his stretch with the Steelers is the reason why he makes this list. Definitely one of the best wide receivers to play the game, even with all that crap that happened at the end of his, tenure. I don't think he makes it back into the NFL.
No shot.
Number 3, Adrian Peterson, getting suspended for child abuse. There's no doubt. You can't argue what AP's done in the league. The dude's a monster, even after knee surgery
and child abuse.
Yeah, he's a monster.
He did get whooped by Le'Veon Bell, so maybe that's a little restitution.
Yeah.
There were some hilarious memes about that. Number 2, we all know what he was suspended for. If you watched football in like the mid 2000s, Mike Vick, one of the biggest stories to come out of the NFL at that time too. Like it shook the whole sport world back then. I'm happy to see that he, you know, you can't say made up for it, but you know, he's tried to become a better person afterwards. I do feel that. So he's a good story, but definitely one of the best players to ever be suspended by the NFL. And number one, I hate the people that say this, but a lot of people would say this guy's the best football player to play the game. His track record is certainly on par or much better than a lot of the greats. So it's hard to argue with, which makes me even more mad. But number one is Tom Brady. Was this over Deflategate? He got suspended over Deflategate?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. Tom Brady, number one player to be suspended by the NFL, and that's Tybo's top 5 players, plus some that have been suspended by the NFL.
That's a good list. That's a fun list. It does harken back to Willie Gay being suspended. We'll talk about that more in our pregame show. Again, he's out for 4 games. That was for an incident that happened a year ago. It happened a year ago. Or not a year ago. I'm sorry.
In
this
January.
was like this was back in January.
It was
before we played the Bills in the playoffs.
Correct. The court and everything came underway back in July. Determined it was a misdemeanor. And all is said and done legally, it was for damage to a household product that he quote unquote didn't own under $1,000. So paid a fine on that. No other ramifications. Suspended for 4 games. It's quite odd that Willie Gay would get 4 games. You see a guy like Mike Evans get 1 after 3 on-field fights. We've seen more or longer suspensions for less fights on the field. Deshaun Watson, obviously, with his 11 games. The PED usage, the 1-year ban or by D-Hop, the 1-year ban by Calvin Ridley. I mean, the numbers don't make sense.
They just don't have a correct scale. Like they don't know what they're working with, and they're trying to make a statement on certain things that don't feel like they should be making a statement on, you know?
I don't think I disagree. I don't think I would agree with their stance if that's the one that they want to make as a company. More so is let's be consistent, right?
Yeah.
You're given 4 games for somebody who, and again, the situation was very scary. We won't rehash that. When the information came out, everybody was very worried for not Willie Gay, but for his ex in the situation and the child. The details to come out about that were not something made light, but it seems the situation was de-escalated very quickly and everyone was safe. But if you're going to be doing that for protecting women, it seems like there's another issue out there for protecting women that, yeah, not good.
Not at all.
No words for it. But the NFL needs to get something under control. Willie will not be appealing, so he will be out until after the Bills game. Now, on to this game. Tybo and I were there, and Tybo, this was the first home opener I've ever been to. Easily,
Oh, really?
It was the first home opener I've ever been to.
Wow.
And this was easily the most electrifying game I've ever been to. The stadium was rocking, and that's no joke. Like the Arrowhead is always rocking. Tybo,
We got to get you to a playoff game, dog.
I got to go to a playoff game. I got to go. Like it's tough, but is this? I mean, I would assume this is normal for a home game, but for a home opener against a division rival who is also a very good team, what was the atmosphere like for you and the game as a whole?
So Arrowhead's always loud, but as far as the atmosphere, it felt like a playoff game, which is why I said like we got to get you to a playoff game because like that's on par with all the home games that I've been to. You know, the Bills game, even though like you know obviously the end of that game was more electric, but like just the feel of everybody at the stadium, like how I don't know. Like the players could feel it. They talked about it in some of their interviews. Like uh the I mean, if anybody saw the video of Jalen Watson, like with audio, if you could hear the crowd in those videos, like it's like you better believe that place was like vibrating in stone. Like it was crazy.
Buzzing the whole night. Now, it was the first game on Amazon Prime. Now, Sean, you're not local to Kansas City. You are from a land down under that nobody likes to talk about in Kansas City. It is home of the Cardinals, and I'm not talking about the Arizona Cardinals. It's probably the worst
No,
baseball
no,
franchise.
I'm not from
He's
St. Louis.
not. He's
No,
not. in
I
St.
know you're
Louis.
not. I thought you didn't. You don't still live down there?
No, I'm in
He lives
Columbia.
in. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I get okay. I'm getting it all wrong.
That's all
Wow.
right.
All right. Well, it's close enough. It's close enough.
I
It's
thought you
home
were
of the
about to say
Tigers.
that because he was home of the Tigers.
Well, I mean, it's not like either team is very good, anyways. But
They
you
used
don't
to be
get the
dogs.
local Kansas City you had to watch on Amazon, right?
Yeah, I had to watch on Amazon. I love
was
the
that
pregame
like?
show. The pregame show was amazing. Tony Gonzalez back in the house, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Richard Sherman as the main talking points.
Interesting.
Carissa Thompson, I believe it was the host, moderator of
Yes.
everybody.
Correct.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, I love watching him talk. He has great insight for what he's talking about. He just breaks it down in such simple terms. Sherman was overhyped as always. Love seeing that. And
Yeah, he's annoying to me.
yeah,
Dude needs
But
There's
to
a lot.
I've been seeing a lot of videos of Fitzpatrick lately, and his voice doesn't match for me. Like I
No, it
thought he would
doesn't.
sound different. Like
he
Not
doesn't,
at
but
all.
he's so chill and relaxed, so it works
Yeah.
for him. Then Tony, he was going off about, oh yeah, Chiefs love me here. This is Chiefs country. We're gonna win. This is a dynasty now. Like it's interesting to see his take on everything coming back.
And what did you think of the broadcast itself?
Broadcast was really good. Commentators, who was it again? Al Michaels and
Kirk.
That was a really,
Kirk Herbstreit, yep.
really great combo right there. Kirk did really well coming to the NFL now, and Al Michaels. I mean, he's just the GOAT, anyways, is he not?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been trying to get Kirk in the league for a long time.
Oh yeah, I was a little kind of pissed off there for a little bit because it started off with Al Michaels centered into the camera like normal on Sunday Night Football. Thought, whatever his name,
Michael Collins or Collinsworth.
No. Yeah, I thought Chris Collinsworth was going to slide right in there for a second. I was so excited to see that, but to no avail.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm excited for Thursday's game to be able to actually watch it on the Amazon broadcast myself and see how that is. It's the first time that we'll have to watch it in Kansas City. Obviously, it's local. You can watch on your local stations everywhere. But it was a big game that the Chiefs came away with. Just to list off a few stats for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes went 24 for 35 for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. Clyde did lead our running backs with 8 carries on 74 yards, 9.3 yards a carry. Where you at, Edwards or Clyde haters? 52 yards was his longest. Travis did lead all receivers with 5 catches, 51 yards. Clyde was second with 4 catches for 44 yards. So they're getting him involved like we've been asked. Kind of run it down on the defensive side. Willie Gay had 11 tackles while Nick Bolton had 10. Dudes were flying.
Yeah.
We did end up with a total of 2 sacks, both coming from Chris Jones. The big third down in the fourth quarter was one of the biggest plays, probably the second biggest play of the game, I would say. What are your guys' biggest plays from Thursday night's game?
Well,
I think.
Go ahead.
I think number one, obviously, was the Jalen Watson interception. Completely changed the game for us right there, changed momentum. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but Gerald Everett should not have been in on that play. He was tired as could be. He was patting his head like, "Coach, get me out." And they just wouldn't take him out.
You know why they kept him in there though? Like, I mean,
yeah,
like tempo.
I know why.
Like they didn't want us to change the personnel.
I understand that, but
that's why they were driving down the field. Like at that point, they had a better package or a mismatched package, and if you sub, then the defense can sub.
Yeah, but I don't
But
think that was the right call for the coaches to have that thrown it his way in that
hindsight's
situation.
2020
Yeah.
because I mean he threw a pick, but I mean they drove the field like
Yeah.
big plays for me, I guess. Like uh, you look at the film and the throws aren't exactly the same, but Pat Mahomes to Justin Watson and then Justin Herbert to who did he throw to? The long touchdown after
So,
he broke his ribs.
The long
oh,
pass. The long pass on a touchdown.
it wasn't Mike
It wasn't a touchdown.
Williams.
No,
No,
he was down on the
Oh,
like 5.
but they like watching from the stands, it looked like the same throw, and like the DBs were right there. Like, I think there was a little bit more of a gap in the Chargers throw, but they both just rocketed it in there and got the ball to the receiver's hand before the defender could like do anything with it, and that's impressive when you consider that's like a 40-yard pass down the field, like 30 to 40 yards of airtime. Like that's an incredible feat by both of these quarterbacks.
And they put it right on the money
Yeah,
over defenders.
I'd probably have to say Herbert's is a little more impressive considering he cracked his sternum or cracked the cartilage in his ribs
yes.
right before that. But you know how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say that Pat's throw obviously wasn't impressive either. I know that's not what you're saying, but Pat
Yeah,
threw that ball to Justin Watson. I believe it was a 40-something yarder. No feet on the ground. No feet on the ground. One of the craziest throws I've ever seen, to be able to throw that distance without coming out with any force to actually rip the ball out was absolutely amazing.
Watching on TV, it looked like he threw it was throwing it like 30 yards, no problem. Just easy, like on the dot. But no, it just
Yeah.
kept going and going.
On a line. I think probably the my play of the night out of for a third one would like I said, would have to be Chris Jones' sack on third down near the end zone. I mean, it was
So
so close to
close.
being a safety. We were sitting right on top of that end zone. So
Oh,
to be able to see that, and the angle that we could see the 99-yard pick. I mean, you're Tybo, you were talking about how tired that Everett was. I just recall seeing it in slow-mo on how bad the pass was. The route obviously didn't help. The pass was awful. It was
yeah.
so ugly. It
I
was
I don't know if
one
it was
step
just a bad
and
route or if it was just a miscommunication because I thought Everett
true,
might have had to
true.
like be like an inside whip and like come back to the inside
It
because that
was
shit just doesn't make sense. Like the
it
Well,
wasn't
placement of that ball
it was
and
also the
where
guy
Everett was
behind him was
standing.
coming in too. The guy was
yes.
coming into that area too, but Everett
It was
didn't
a
get out
bad
far
route.
enough to the flat. So
It was a bad route followed up by a bad pass. He did
yeah,
have the outside whip, so it was go in and then come back out to the corner where the backside safety, I believe it was Justin Reed, was crashing down, and Jalen was coming from the inside safety or slot position, and he was just one step away. It just wasn't a good ball overall.
It was a opportune time for a really bad offensive rep.
Yes, it was bad. Um, with that, we also didn't play that great. It
our
wasn't
offense
the
didn't play that
clean.
great.
Yes, I'll say that our offense didn't play that great, but defensively, obviously we had Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, totaling 21 tackles together. Take those two out of the equation. Who are your guys' top players on the defense? I'm gonna have to go with a second week in a row, Juan Thornhill.
That's
In
who I was gonna
2
say too.
weeks, he has been targeted a total of 0 times. There's not one time that a quarterback has thrown his way in 2 weeks. We were just talking about this guy recovering last season from the ACL tear and how this is going to be a contract year and we're not sure how he's going to play and blah, blah, blah. In 2 weeks, he has quarterbacks like Justin Herbert scared. And that should say a lot for where this defense is, even with Steve Spagnuolo as the D coordinator.
I would say my player is Chris Jones. Um, it's only been 2 weeks, but I haven't seen him take as many plays off. He's winning like an insane amount of his reps, and he's getting double teamed a lot. So Chris Jones is just overpowering dudes out here. and I mean, I believe he's near the top in the NFL for pressures. But I hope he keeps this mentality throughout the season, and I hope he stays healthy to see the playoffs. Because when you're playing like that, you know, you're probably putting yourself at a higher risk for injury. But I love seeing his aggression and just the mentality out there. I will say, I think of the two linebackers, Nick Bolton played better, but overall the defense, the secondary and Willie Gay at times just looked a little frazzled. Willie Gay had a couple missed tackles where he just felt like he was flying in too fast. But there wasn't, even though we were down, there wasn't ever a point in this game where I felt like we were out of it. And that's just how we've grown accustomed to seeing the Chiefs play ball lately, the past 4 years. Or you can go back further than that probably, but just there's an added element with Mahomes playing quarterback. And there was moments in the game where you feel like we could have totally swung the momentum. The almost safety is one of those plays that we didn't necessarily capitalize on, but it kept us right there. Like it wasn't a negative play by any standard, but if it was that much marginally better, we could have swung the whole momentum and really taken control of the game. But we were never out of it. Even when they were driving, we weren't out of it.
Well, yeah, being down 10 is just no problem for Patrick Mahomes. He's 11-8 when he's down by 10 or more at the end of the first quarter, and the rest of the NFL in that time is 147 and 832.
He's the only quarterback to have a winning record when trailing.
Yeah.
Like in the fourth,
the next closest is Tom Brady, and he's 7-14.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I did see that stat about Patrick Mahomes having the winning record. It's not just having a winning record when losing. He has a winning record when trailing in the fourth quarter with 5 or less minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in.
Just think about that for a second.
Sean, who is going to be your defensive player from this week?
I'm going to have to go for just the rookie cornerbacks. They really stepped up in the second half there. First time in Arrowhead, first primetime game for them. I thought they really stepped up. They really started playing a lot better coverage because in the second half, Justin Herbert was really not going downfield as much. It was more just a bunch of checkdowns to Eckler. From what I was seeing, at least, they were not pushing it as far as they could have in the first half. And they all had good games. Rashad Fenton had a little bit of trouble guarding Mike Williams in the first half, but it's a big difference in humans right there.
Let's go to the offensive side of the ball and pick our top players from Thursday night's game from there. For me, I'm going to have to go across the board on the entire offensive line, most specifically left and right tackle Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley. The offensive line only allowed 1 sack on the night with 2 guys, Joey Bosa and Mac on the other side. An incredible job for that. There has to be a hat tip towards Andrew Wiley. I saw a stat somewhere in there over like his last. I'm gonna have to go find it, but he has allowed like 0 pressures or 0 QB hits over like his last like 10 games, something like that. I'm gonna have to find it, but he has given up like 0 pressures in roughly the last 10 games. For a guy who did not come in as a starter, who moved around from right guard, left tackle, left tackle, plays all 4 positions across front minus center, you can't ask much more out of a guy who doesn't seem like he had a solidified position before the season.
For sure. I think I said one of the last podcasts, like he surprises us, with his tenure with the Chiefs. I don't think we can call it a surprise anymore. Like we know kind of the caliber of play he's bringing to the table when he's in there.
My unsung hero for the offense this week was it's got to be Clyde. It's great to see him start going, get some big numbers out there. He looked great in the passing game. He ran over Derwin James once after a catch.
Yes, he did.
That was awesome
on the angle pattern that they need to start throwing more of.
It was a great thing. I just love seeing that we're finally throwing to him, and that's what he was known for in college, is catching it out of the backfield and running with the ball. But one of my favorite runs was that long 50-yard run he had. He was not losing that ball, man. He was not losing that. That was set up for a 2-yard run.
He was
took
running
that
towards us in the stand so we could see him doing this shit. That was
the
hilarious.
whole entire time, man.
I'm gonna go with Justin Watson.
Yeah.
I have not been a believer in him throughout camp and the beginning of the season. But he's been biding his time. He's waiting for an opportunity, and he got it on Thursday. And he delivered. Just huge moment for us. But to know that we have more than MVS and McCole Hardman as a guy that can take the not take the top off the defense, but just be a deep threat. Pat's gonna get the ball to anybody, but our wide receiver depth is probably up there with the best in the league. So
I saw this stat the other day, and obviously this was not the offensive blowout. I did tell everybody to take the under, even though I clearly did not. And hey, I told you if you're betting, I wasn't betting the
Fade
over
him.
the under. Don't fade me no more. It was an incredible defensive effort on both sides of the ball. Mahomes was under pressure on 12 dropbacks. That means 36.1% of the time. He ended up going 6 for 12 for 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and only took 1 sack. While Herbert was under pressure 16 on 16 of his dropbacks, 36% of the time, just a little bit less, not much. He ended up going 8 for 16 for 43 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 sacks. So 50% completion on both sides, but about more than a 60-yard difference. There's 2 touchdowns to 0 and 1 sack to 2. It's just clear as day. And obviously, Patrick has been in the league a little bit longer, but it's clear as day. No matter what the company we won't name adjusted score comes out and says that the Chiefs are actual losers and not winners, we've got something special that, and this is over the tail of time, right? Like, over the last multiple years, we've seen Patrick Mahomes blitzed and more in the box, and then they bring more pressure and they drop a lot of guys back, and it's like a mix of a lot of different things that most other quarterbacks, like say Kirk Cousins, won't get because he's bad. And Patrick Mahomes still comes out and wins every single time.
Yeah, and you spoke about the defensive effort on both sides of the ball. The third down conversion rates on both sides for both teams were bad.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers went forward on fourth a little bit more than we did.
Chargers were 5 and 16 on third down. We were 4 and 12.
Yeah. So, it wasn't necessarily like a 0-3 defensive struggle, but the defensive presence was felt on the field last night, and it just goes to show, like, not everybody, it's not all going to be, offensive divas making, all the touchdowns out there. The defensive guys are paid too. And I think around the league, we're seeing this year, like, it's harder to score. These defenses are good.
Yeah, I think the Chargers defense is extremely underrated, and we only put up 20 points on them on offense. Just to have that defensive score right there was huge for us.
Defense wins championships. Pat Mahomes is nice too, though.
But the Chargers are always going to be the Chargers, so that doesn't always work out for them. You're muted.
You're muted, dude.
I did that again. Gosh dang it. Sitting here going off on the Chargers. That's the thing with the Chargers. Like, they're going to Charger, and that is their slogan. No matter what, they're going to come in, they're going to play a good game, and at the end of the day, none of what they did is going to matter. And their fans and neutrals are going to be sad and upset that they're getting their butt whoops every single time. And then they're going to end up with second or third place in the division, barely make the playoffs or miss the playoffs. And that's just who the Chargers are. That's who the Chargers have been since like late 2000s after they lost LaDainian. And even when they had LaDainian Tomlinson and Rivers and Antonio Gates and you name it, like at the end of the day, that Chargers franchise has done nothing no matter which location they choose to be in.
And they definitely have a longer history of that than us, but we were that before Pat Mahomes. Like with Alex Smith, like it's been said about almost every team in the AFC West. Like the Chiefs are going to chief. I have heard that so many times in my life. I've said it. Okay, Chargers are going to Charger. The Raiders are going to Raider. I don't think it's been said about the Broncos really, but guess what? It's happening this year, and that's going to be a phrase
coming up. Let's ride.
The Broncos are going to ride.
Boys, what are some of the takeaways that you have from Thursday night's game against the Chargers?
If we play them like that in Los Angeles, we're not going to win that game.
100%.
We got to get better.
That goes to show how important Blake Bell was for us for blocking as well.
Would agree.
Huge miss right there.
Would agree. D-line has to step up a little bit more in my mind moving forward.
Top five
obviously,
D-line.
Top 5 D-line. Obviously, Chris Jones was good, and he was probably one of the main reasons that we won. There was a lot of stuff that's not going to show up in the stat book that he did. That's normal for a defensive lineman and offensive lineman. But like, dude, I was sitting there talking to Tybo when we were at the game. Karlaftis was silent for most of the first half. If I remember correct, they took him out early in the second. Like I don't remember seeing him on the field for a large portion of the second quarter. And now they did bring him back in the third, and he was starting to be around the plays, but still not very many pressures, no sacks. He did have a PBU off the line, which was neat. But like Chris Jones, as we saw
a lot
last
of
year,
Dunlap, didn't we?
Yep.
We saw a lot of Dunlap. And I think that goes back to Tybo, like saying, over the offseason and last week, like how often is he really going to get 50% of the snap share week in and week out? And Thursday night was a massive test against him, showing that he is ready when the teams aren't very good. When it comes down to these better teams, and as we get into the playoffs, long way away, he's got a lot of work to put in before he gets there. I need to see more out of him, most specifically. But Chris Jones needs some help. We saw last year he can't do it all on his own.
Yeah, Slater is going to be the caliber of tackle that he's seeing.
Yep.
At that point.
And that it's no joke against that Chargers team though. Like as you said, Tybo, if we go in there and play like that, if we go into the teams that are coming up in our next 4 games, if we go in and play like that against a couple of them, it's going to be a rough next 4 games, especially with Willie Gay beat out. Is there anything?
I feel like the Bills game in the regular season is going to be better than the regular season Bills game last year. I don't think they're going to beat us as bad as if they even beat us. I don't think it's going to be like that type of win for the Bills.
It's nice. We get solid 10 days off before our next game, which means that Damone Harris and Leo Chanel and Elijah Lee, those 3 get to work out with the first team a lot. We get to figure out who's going to be in, what the packages we're running. It's probably going to be a lot of nickel. We're probably going to end up seeing a lot of. I would suspect we'll get to see a lot of Brian Cook out there.
I would agree.
It'd be nice to see.
The positive thing is Andy's track record when he has preparation is pristine. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to take the Colts lightly. I think a lot of people expect us to get cocky and fall into this little lull of getting comfortable. But I don't think Andy's going to let that happen.
Yeah,
Boys,
definitely not.
Is there anything that we missed from week 2 that you guys wanted to talk about? I know Sean's got quite a bit of notes always.
Joey Bosa was obviously a problem. I don't know why we chose to run at him some of those times. We had we had a great thing going, and we just decided to run towards his side. And he's known for his pass rush abilities, but he can block or stop a run pretty well too. So that confused me some.
Wanted to call back to the Andrew Wiley stat that I gave. It was 83 pass blocking snaps, and he's not allowed a single hit or sack.
And it's good.
For this year or just his last 10 games?
In his last 83 pass blocking snaps. So take that back however long. Probably goes back
Okay.
to a couple games last
that
season,
counting-
a game or two last season.
Is that
Yeah, it has
counting like postseason last season?
Yes.
assume
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
It'd be
Okay.
just his last straight up 83 consecutive snaps. Pass blocking snaps. Well, boys, if there's nothing else, we've got a few more days. Obviously, we've had a lot of time to soak up this game, feel pretty good about it. We go on to Indianapolis next. That is a noon kickoff on Sunday. It feels kind of like a trap game. I'm not going to lie. Colts are bad this year, but they generally are a trap game for us. So I am a little nervous moving into Thursday. We'll have to see how it plays out. But yes, we play on. It is our first noon kickoff of this season. We will be excited. It is in Indy, so make sure to join us back on Thursday or Friday, whenever you decide to listen to it, to get our pregame show for the Chiefs. As always, go Chiefs.
Go
Go Chiefs.